Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating and, frankly, radically different approach to how human society is structured. We're looking at a text by Su Feng titled Believe in and Rely on the Home, which lays out the culture-building philosophy behind the Second Home, an organization now known as New Oasis for Life. What's wild here is that this ideology essentially attempts to systematically dismantle all of our traditional relationships, replacing them with a total 100% reliance on a single, unified community. Let's dive in and see exactly how and why they propose doing this.
The text actually kicks things off with a proverb that's probably pretty familiar to most of us. At home, we rely on our parents. In the society, we depend on our friends. And yeah, that makes sense, right? In everyday human society, we naturally build these complex webs of interpersonal relationships just to survive. We lean on our spouses, our siblings, our colleagues. But here's the catch. The text uses this proverb specifically to set up the exact thing it wants to completely tear down.
Section 1. The Interpersonal Relationship Trap.
According to Su Feng, this traditional web of human reliance we just talked about, it isn't a support system at all. It's actually a trap. The source forcefully condemns these relationships, arguing that depending on everyday people inevitably leads to a massive list of interpersonal pains. As you can see grouped here, traditional relationships supposedly create some pretty dark clouds, things like emotional turmoil, oppression, jealousy, and endless intrigue. At its absolute extreme, the text claims this leads to mental torture and control of the soul. It asserts that as long as you depend on individuals, these ugly phenomena are never going to end.
So, the text leans heavily on this high-contrast juxtaposition. On one side, you have dependence on man. This is framed as a literal tragedy of life, an unbearable spiritual burden, and ultimately a form of slavery where you sacrifice your true self just to serve others. That's a pretty heavy claim, right? But on the flip side, we have dependence on the home. The promise here is that if you shift your trust entirely over to this collective home, everything suddenly becomes pure and simple. Relationships are natural and harmonious, filled with nothing but happiness and love. The idea is that by shifting your reliance, all those dark, heavy interpersonal conflicts just magically disperse like clouds.
Section 2. Enter the second home.
Okay, so to make all those interpersonal conflicts disappear, the text says we must transfer all our reliance away from individuals and place it entirely onto this unified entity, the second home. But let's be real. For someone to confidently cut all their traditional ties, this new home has to provide literally everything. And this utopian solution claims to do exactly that, taking over all the responsibilities traditionally handled by society and the family unit. Physical needs, your food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, fully covered. Dependence, the home takes over completely, supporting the elderly and educating the children. And then there are personal needs. The home provides a stage for your ambition, and notably, it guarantees absolute freedom of emotional and sex love. By handling the logistics of basically your entire physical, familial, and emotional life, the home actively removes your need to depend on a spouse, a parent, or a boss.
Section 3. Redefining Trust and Belief.
Having established the second home as this ultimate, all-encompassing provider, your internal belief system now has to be completely rewired. Su Feng dictates that followers have to build their trust exclusively on 3 pillars. First, the greatest creator. Second, the home. And third, ourselves. Now, do you notice what is entirely missing from that list? Other people. The text explicitly states we should not believe in and depend on man. It argues that trusting your fellow human beings will only ever prove to be an encumbrance, a spiritual burden. To lead a true life of your own within this ideology, you literally have to strip away your reliance on your fellow man. Which naturally brings us to a direct, rhetorical question posed by the source itself. How do we believe in and depend on the home? Because, well, it's one thing to say you're going to transfer all your trust to a collective entity, but it's a whole different ballgame to actually live it out. This question pivots us right from the theoretical claims of the ideology straight into the practical execution of this total reliance.
Section 4. How to rely on home.
To actually execute this reliance, the text outlines a very strict psychological reorientation, mostly so members don't drag the baggage of the outside world in with them. First, you have to view the home as your permanent place to settle down for a quiet life. Second, see it as the ultimate stage to utilize your specific talents. Third, embrace the environment as a place for pure joy and freedom.
Fourth, you need to use the home to cultivate extreme virtues like sincerity and honesty. But it's this fifth step that is perhaps the most radical. You must regard every single member of the community as your sister, brother, relative, and lover. It's a complete, deliberate blurring of traditional boundaries. You're replacing exclusive, one-on-one family and romantic ties with an all-encompassing communal intimacy.
Now, in practical, day-to-day terms, the text instructs members exactly how to behave. You're told to love the home and work unselfishly, choosing jobs based on your actual interests so that you can hit peak performance. There's also a very clear transactional rule stated. You must ensure that every single day you contribute more to the home than you take from it. But hey, it's not just about physical labor. There's a massive focus on spiritual growth too. Members are instructed to continuously sublimate the quality of life and relentlessly focus on perfecting what the text refers to as their non-material structure of life. You're basically meant to be constantly climbing toward the highest realm of existence.
Section 5. The ultimate guarantee.
To wrap things up, Sui Feng poses that core question. How can we believe in and depend on the home? One more time, introducing the absolute foundational rule of this entire utopia. The text mandates that upholding the 800 values for New Era human being is the fundamental guarantee to make all of this actually work. Without strict, unwavering adherence to these 800 values, the individual's wishes and the home's ideals just cannot be realized. And honestly, this leaves us with a pretty profound, lingering question. In a society meticulously designed to eliminate the mental torture and control of the outside world, what exactly do these 800 values entail? And just how completely must they govern the minds of the people living inside the second home to maintain this incredibly fragile, radical harmony? Well, that is something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it sparked your curiosity to look a little deeper.